Ex-cons of Reddit. What was the hardest prison habit to break after being released? I had to completely change my sense of time. I agree with all the people who said they ate super fast, but then we would slowly walk back from the chow hall, any excuse for a few minutes more outside. I made sure I never consolidated enjoyable things. If I had a snack, I ate it and concentrated on it. If there was something good on TV, I watched it. Now I'll snack while I watch a movie because there aren't enough hours in the day, but on the inside, I was trying to make hours and days go away. I've got a good job now and nice respectable friends, but I still react to confrontational situations more quickly, decisively, and efficiently than they do. I'm able to pull back at the last minute, but it's pretty clear that violence is not a tool in their arsenal. I think in the real world, 90% of winning a fight is being willing to fight in the first place. Most people realize very quickly once a fight starts that they don't actually want to fight. Dude I work with said for the first little bit after getting out, he would take a leg out of his pants when he'd crap. Not sure how common that was. Dude's a fighter though, so maybe that had something to do with it. Is it weird that I sometimes do this just because it's more comfortable? It will also allow you full range of motion if, someone busts in on you while you're grunting. Not me, but a guy who worked for me. When things were very busy, I would often get carry-out lunch for everyone and bring it back to the workplace. This one guy would eat a cheeseburger and french fries in 2 minutes. Wow. Once I asked him why he ate so quickly, he said, "Well, Nobsforgma, I spent 7 years in a federal prison, and if you didn't eat your meal in 10 minutes, you didn't get anything. That 10 minutes often included the time it took standing in line to get your food." Okay then. I never said anything to him about it after that. Hey you're a decent human being. You hired an ex-con, keep up the decency. I'm not that great. I lived in a small coastal community on the Gulf of Mexico. Of course, seafood was the main business with lots of small boats and subsistence fishing, crabbing, oystering. The FBI put together a sting and hired 4 fishermen to offload what was supposed to be bags of cocaine onto their boats from a large boat that could not go in shallow water. It was actually not cocaine. They were to be paid $10,000, which was to them almost a year's income. These 4 fishermen were busted and ended up spending 7 years in federal prison, and a prison far, far away from their families. So I had known this young man for years, and for me, his time in prison was like, you screwed up, but whatever. He was funny and hardworking and not really bitter about what happened. He worked for me in my small wholesale seafood business and was great. P.S. I would have no qualms about hiring an ex-con. Not afraid of that, as long as they didn't have 13 tattooed on their forehead. My friend once told me he got hooked on watching news channels and crappy daytime television. He said he also enjoyed listening to AM radio now, even though he knows specific podcasts exist that are more tailored to him. He killed himself 3 years ago after getting a 20-year sentence just 1 year after getting out. Edit. A lot of people asking questions, so I'll just go ahead and clarify here. At 18, he served a little over a year in prison for moving marijuana, got out, violated parole, and got caught moving mass amounts of marijuana and other things like breaking into homes / petty theft, which was going to send him back for at least 15 years. After the jig was up, he had a while where he was allowed to stay at home, where he shot himself with a 9mm pistol in the head. He survived the initial shot, but later died 2 days after going to the hospital. Was a great friend and knew him since elementary school. Top of our graduating class in high school, just too much exposure to the wrong people. That's something our society doesn't talk about. Once these guys get out, a lot of them don't make it long before they commit suicide. It's so effing sad. They survived hell, and I'm not going to argue who deserved it or not. That's not my point. And then finally are released and just can't cope. It's heartbreaking. Edit. A word. I think that guy killed himself because he was going back to prison for 20 years and was probably going to die there anyway. Edit. Hey, Juicebox, Shakur, Arief, can you give us some clarity? Things are probably getting out of hand here. Edit 3.5. I guess I don't have the attention to detail I thought that I had. Taking a crap with my underwear up to my thighs to hide my junk. It took a long time to go back to pants around the ankles. I still do that. I forgot it wasn't normal until my girlfriend pointed it out. Constantly looking over my shoulder. By far the hardest condition to break, which I haven't and doubt I ever will, is the constant pessimism and cautious optimism. You see, when you're waiting to work your way through court, get a deal, and get sentenced, you will have your dates changed 50 times, hope for certain things only to be disappointed, and anytime you are told something hopeful, it doesn't work out. As a result, I never get excited for something until it actually happens. When my wife told me we were pregnant, I already knew from her symptoms that she was, but still, you never know for sure till you take the test. I was obviously happy, but because I'm always cautiously optimistic and rarely show emotion, I couldn't feel comfortable or excited until I knew that my developing daughter was healthy. Even then, it didn't really hit me till she was born. You can apply this to anything, especially big events. Getting engaged, planning the wedding, buying a house, anything. I still hear from my wife how I wasn't crazy surprised or excited to be having a kid. I actually was the half of the relationship who was dead set on a kid when my wife supposedly could have gone either way. You just can't get your hopes up or look forward to anything until it's here or has happened. I've been home over 7 years now and with my wife for 6.5. She's truly the catalyst that motivated me to truly change my life and to not give any more of my life to the system, but she'll never know how happy she makes me, because she misinterprets my cautious optimism/realism for pessimism or indifference. Now, show this post to your wife. Seriously, it'd be like, you should read this, but I do not want to talk about it. Just think on it. But that's just me. Edit. Holy crap. I guess thousands of people agree. Damn. I second this. It is stupid hard to be vulnerable as a male, and telling her this makes you vulnerable, no doubt. I can only imagine how much harder being vulnerable is for someone that has been to prison, but the emotional intimacy it will develop with your wife is incredibly important. You were probably saying to yourself that saying what you wrote would be too hard, and that is okay. But you already wrote it, so what the hell? I didn't use a fork for a few weeks, ate everything with a spoon without thinking. It's not the most interesting thing, but I hadn't noticed it posted here. I still do this from being in the military. I hate eating with forks. Give me a spoon or some chopsticks. Edit. Thank you. After boot camp, it took me many years to stop eating at a breakneck speed. I still have trouble making myself slow down, and it's been well over a decade. Taking as long as you want in the shower. For the longest time after I got out, I took less than 5-minute showers. My friend did 2.5 in Florida State Prison, said the first thing he did when he got home was shower until all the hot water ran out. Edit. Because this seems to be coming up a lot, this was like 15 years ago. Tankless water heaters weren't really a thing back then. I'm not totally sure if they even existed, and if so, they weren't common in lower-income households. So yes, it was very possible to run out of hot water. Wow, sounds like a weekday for me. It's cool, Eco Bros. I bike to work every day. Doing laps. In prison, every time you get time on the yard, you do laps. Seriously, almost every single person does it too. When you get out, it's hard to break that habit. Oh yeah, this is accurate. This guy went to prison. Pacing back and forth in your pod too to get that little bit of cardio in? Pretty much any time you've got the chance to, LOL. Do some laps, maybe see a few people to get something for when you're locked in, take some crap, then get ready to lock in, only to repeat it again the very next day, every day for the next couple of years. Having your head on a swivel, protecting your personal property in an obsessive manner, and sizing everyone up. When I was locked up, I always knew what was going on 360 degrees around me. Only the last unit I was in had lockers with actual locks, so before that I had to protect my commie, paperwork, and books all the time. Most people would fight you to take your crap because that is the respectful way to do it, but cat burglars are the worst. They sneak around and take crap. They get effed up by everyone when they get caught. It is code. You want my crap? Come get it. Not sneaking around and stealing it. I've been out for almost a year and a half, but I still constantly size people up. No matter where it is, grocery store, Walmart, walking down the street, I still analyze each person and figure out my best course of action if we have to fight. Does it stress you out a lot? I imagine you didn't have to do this before you went to prison. Also, what is a specific example of something happening where you almost didn't check yourself and remember you're not in prison anymore, if that has happened yet? Thank you for taking your time to comment. This whole thread has been pretty eye-opening. I did not have to do that much when I was on the outside. I grew up in a Philly suburb, and when I did live in the city, I didn't live in the hood, so I'm not accustomed to having to constantly watch my back. Anyway, yes, it does stress me out a lot. It's as if my fight response is constantly switched on. One specific thing I notice is how quickly I turn my head. If I hear a noise, commotion, or people speaking loudly, when I turn and look in that direction, I turn my neck as quickly as possible. I'm surprised I haven't heard anything crack yet. Over the past few months, I have noticed I am getting a bit more calm, so hopefully this subsides completely. I find myself hoarding toilet paper under my bed. Sometimes I do it without thinking, and I'll look under there and have 10 rolls of teepee. Probably stupid question, but why did you hoard it in prison? In many prisons, they're issued supplies on a regular basis. I don't know the schedule because I didn't work in a prison. I was a police officer. So if you get 1 roll of TP per month, you save and hoard the rest. The local jail issued them 1 roll. They had to turn it into the paper center to get another roll and were limited to how often they could get another. The hardest thing has been to talk without using the words F, effing, or a-hole in every sentence. Become a trucker or construction worker and you should fit right in. Edit. Or apparently a chef/cook, software engineer, programmer, IT, mechanic, sailor, marine, soldier, or nurse/EMS. I'm a construction worker. I've cussed while talking to a priest many times without realizing it. My wife makes sure to yell at me later. Oops. I spent 72 months in prison for a tragic car accident that I had caused. After I was released, I kept telling my wife exactly what I was doing without her asking. She thought it was funny at first, but after a few weeks of it, she started to get bothered. I am now putting it in. Edit. LMAO, thanks for the gold. I am going to plan your surprise birthday party. A somewhat friend of mine did a few years, and the one habit he couldn't shake was distrusting people. He said that people in prison are never nice. If they're nice, it's because of a hidden motive. Up to this day, he still doesn't trust people who act nice, generous, helpful towards him. I grew up in a sort of rough environment. It's like that in general there too. Nothing is free, everything at a price. I had a guy want something from me as a teenager and I didn't do it for him. He brought up to me that he told me where a good hardware store was. Didn't take me there, buy me anything, or even tell me that they for sure had what I was looking for. Just told me where a supposed good one was. He thought this was leverage enough to get what he wanted out of me. Nope. That's funny. It sounds a lot like my lawyer. Making prison commissary-only food. Everyone around me thinks it's gross as hell to throw summer sausage, pickles, cheese, Doritos, Cheetos, and such into my ramen noodles, but good lord, I can't stop, and I have been out for 5 years. My dad was in and out of jail when I was a child. When he was out, he used to make me jailhouse slams, basically whatever you can find to throw into ramen, as you said. I thought they were the best thing ever, and it was so cool because I ate when my dad ate, right? Fast forward about 12 years, and I'm telling my GF this story, and she's just like, "Your dad fed you prison food?" Edit, a word. Edit 2. My highest comment is about my traumatizing childhood. LOL, thanks guys. My dad did the same. Growing up, I never thought twice about it. It was probably one of my favorite things Dad made. Marrying into a family of cops, I mentioned slams in passing and got a few looks from the in-laws. My ex would sleep a certain way all the time. To me, it seemed like he was sleeping as if he was in a coffin, his arms crossed, and wouldn't move the entire night for a couple months. He eventually broke the habit. Edit, a word. I did that too when I was in. Not because I was afraid of getting AR'd, but because if someone came at me when I was sleeping, it was the best position to be able to defend yourself. I'm a stomach sleeper normally. I'm sure this was his reason too. When I would go visit him and see other inmates through the glass, I would be so afraid for him. Some guys looked like beasts and acted very wild. A couple guys I know, after being out for 5 to 10 years, wrap their arms around their plates and shovel food in their mouths at the speed of light. They are also super defensive of their food. When I first got to know them, I jokingly swiped a chip off of one of their plates and he flipped his fork up and demanded I give it back, freaking me out a little. I could just imagine them going on a date with one of those people who says they don't want anything but then proceeds to grab something off your plate. Joey doesn't share food! I don't smoke, but every time someone offered me a cig, I would pocket it. On the inside, that's a bartering chip. Took me about a month or two to break. What's the smoking policy in jails? Because aren't you only allowed 2 hours outside a day? Does that mean you can only smoke for 2 hours of the day, or could you smoke inside? I've always wondered. I don't think you're allowed to smoke inside, but many of them do it anyway. Being paranoid always looks over my shoulder and never letting anyone stand behind me. Even people passing on the side of me, I'm always turning my head to see what they're doing. Food, I could be the last one to eat, first one done, and I still stand when I eat around people. I'm not an ex-con, but I hate people standing or walking behind me. I'm not violent, but that makes me really flip out. Not an ex-con, but good friend's uncle did 20 years or so. His habit was how he ate. Everything on the 8 got immediately cut, mixed, and devoured fast as hell. Don't know why. He always says that's how you did it there. You ate and GTFO as quickly as you could. That's one thing that I'm still doing, chowing down as fast as I can so nobody else has the chance to get you or take your food. Military does this too. It took me a long time to stop going through all my food in like 2 seconds like I was starving. Staring at sharp things. Like there's no desire to use them inappropriately, but you're just kind of shocked they're there and available for use. You might be surprised what qualifies as a sharp object. I remember when someone tried to hand me a knife or something to cut veggies, I'd be afraid to touch it. Glass was the biggest thing though, just mirrors in all the bathrooms, real ones. I could smash that crap and have a big jagged weapon. I can't believe this Italian restaurant has such a dangerous thing in their bathroom. Stopping thinking of objects as weapons is hard. Hardest habit? Talking crap to dumb old men who think they're right because they're old. Easiest habit? I'm never eating top ramen or getting a bowl cut from a Mexican barber again. I hated that crap in prison. Old guys think they know so much just because of their age. Like, mother effer, you're in prison. You obviously don't know much better than I do. And I'm still rocking my bad haircut right now. Yeah, I go to a barber college now, so my bad haircut is free and costs me exactly 0 soups. Not an ex-con, but my stepdad has been in and out of prison for the majority of his life. He always said that whenever he gets out of prison, you're so used to it being loud all the time that when he got home he couldn't sleep because it was so quiet. My friend who did a few years had to sleep with infomercials turned up quite loud just to get sleep at night. Always thought he was just accustomed to sleeping with the TV on. Now it makes sense. Sure seems like ex-military and ex-cons share a lot of habits. Not sure what to make of that. My best friend did 6 years in prison, I did 8 in the military. We concluded that the wire on his fence was to keep the enemy in. Mine was to keep the enemy out. Edit. To note that was the only difference in our lives while serving our time. Second edit. To cover down some comments, the comparisons were while I was deployed, I did 3 tours and it is very different from being home in garrison. True, in garrison is just like living a normal life. But while you're deployed, you're often wondering, is this my last day alive? What's my family doing, thinking, experiencing while I'm out here? You gotta wait in line for the phone if you even got to use the phone. The internet was a rare option to even send an email. So don't write how silly it is until you've sat down with your best friend, thankful he made it out alive and he's thankful you did too. Never did prison or the military, but I spent 20 years getting the crap beaten out of me by my dad, and I'm sitting here reading this crap and nodding along. I do almost all this stuff. Maybe it's a trauma thing. Sounds like there's a major epidemic of ex-prisoners with PTSD that society doesn't talk about. It's part of the reason why the U.S. has such a high recidivism rate. Prisoners are dehumanized. Whatever issues that put them there are exacerbated, and once released, they have less options than before getting in trouble. Add to that PTSD and the never-ending fear of going back, it's a small wonder more prisoners don't lose their crap and be unable to function in society on the outside. Edit a word. Society, U.S., doesn't care about ex-cons. Every amount of pain, no matter their crime, they suffer in prison, and the pain they suffer if they unfortunately get out is justified. They deserve to be AR'd, to be beaten, to starve, and to be poor. The U.S. consciousness of punishment and prison is disgusting. Hoard feminine hygiene products. We were super limited on the number of pads or tampons they gave us. They didn't give any to the women in holding cells. There was dried and fresh menstrual blood on the floor and concrete benches and a drain in the middle of the rooms like they intended to hose down the room, but if they did, it was not often enough. That seems like a violation of human rights. Lack of hygiene leads to unsanitary condition, which leads to infection, which leads to illness. How did they justify that? Nobody cares. They're just criminals. My uncle was in prison for a while, and we've talked a bit about his experience and how it affected him. He has a hard time not being violent. You'd never guess since he mainly just sits in a corner and smokes, but he's been out for nearly 10 years and still always struggles with using his words. The guy cannot stand authority. He tells me that it's hard to listen to bosses when you know you're probably smarter and tougher than them. He knows most people feel this way, but he just can't ignore it. He's taken up professional carving so he can be his boss. He's really in touch with our native roots now, on account of joining a First Nations gang in prison. Doesn't talk much. I don't know if that's because of prison, but he really only speaks if he wants to. Not the type of guy who likes to talk just to talk. Doesn't have a lot. He has some sort of abandonment issue or something, so he doesn't want a lot of things to miss if he goes back to prison. For all the time he doesn't spend with people, he's out with nature and doing something in the wilderness. I think it helps keep him calm and feel connected. Nice enough guy, but prison kinda effed him up. I think he's going to live his life being slightly disconnected with people. Be slow to speak, quick to listen. One of my foster sons came to us from juvie. Every meal his arm was around his plate and he woofed down his food. My mastiff couldn't keep up. He always ate back to the wall, hunched. Took my wife and I a month to show him no one would take his food, and we had plenty more. Funny part is, he went in the Marines and did 8 years, got out honorable, and is now working in corrections. Good for him. Seems like you guys must have really had a positive impact on him. I had to win over his trust. That takes time and a lot of understanding on both sides. I've been very fortunate to have great boys that just needed to know someone gave a damn. I always stuck to my word and was always fair and honest. Hard work on the farm and as much fun and care as they need. All our boys went to college or trade school or military careers. Out of 28 boys, only one went the other way. We took him in and got him through rehab, but lost him in the end. I managed to adopt most who wanted to be adopted, but I did leave all in a much better place, self-sufficient and capable of meeting life's challenges. Yes, many nights were pain and tears, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was all worth it in the end. P.S. My wife and I never placed with females as we were good at dealing with behavior problem males. It was just a knack we had. The family farm made it easy to take boys and we had plenty of work. Our record of 28-1 is pretty good, I think. P.S.S. Our last boy is 15, does well in school, which he attends with my grandson and his best pal. I'm finally hanging up my dad hat in 3 years at age 74. I still like having a stash of ramen packs somewhere, even if I'm not going to eat them. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.